Hello, please excuse the background noise. Let's move this down a little bit. There. So, I thought it would be a good idea today to give you a little bit of an update, for those who've watched the channel before, of what's in the garage, what's gone out of the garage, because we've had a few things go in the last year. F40 went a while ago. Then we had the 812 that converted into a GT4 Lusso, which was great. Had a baby, wanted some more seats. Figured if I kept it, I would do another 10,000 miles and then I would lose a bunch of money on it. So anyway, that went onwards. Then we had a new family vehicle, M340i Touring, which was great. Kind of realized I would like a little bit more space. It was fine, but I kind of wanted a bit more space. So that has now gone. And then, what else have we got? So we've got just over here, you can see probably, just there somewhere, a new car. You can probably, the astute ones amongst you, probably not even the less astute ones can work out. We've got another 911. So I thought, let's have a little look around the car. I'll talk you through spec and things like that, and go for a little drive, just a little mooch. And I'll talk through why this car and what was my thinking and my usage for car and that sort of thing. But first, let's go and have a look around my new car. Right, well, what have we got here? We have a 991.2 GTS PDK. For those that don't know what that entails in terms of base spec, basically GTS is like a slightly pumped up Carrera S. It's not turbo, it's not GT3, it's like they've taken the Carrera platform and then they've elevated it with a bunch of options pretty much that you can order anyway, and they've put it in like a sort of nice package. And they generally, one of the reasons some people choose GTSs is you might have chosen most of these options anyway, but if you got a Carrera S and optioned it up to this level, it would have the base price of the Carrera S. So in resale point of view, GTSs seem to do a bit better because they try and package a bunch of things that people might order on their Carrera S. Now, let's have a little look around. Some of the things that you get. So GTSs have a wide body, even if you get the 2. So this is a 2, so rear wheel drive PDK. They come with the black wheels. I'm not a massive fan of the black wheels. Write in the comments what color I should change them to. In fact, even if you've got a link, I don't know if you can put links, or an example of a certain color, I'm not exactly sure what I want to change them to, but I think they will probably change away from black, just a bit dark. Not bad, because I don't have ceramics, you get quite a lot of brake dust, and it's not the only reason to get ceramics, but it's one of them. And because of that, black actually stays looking pretty clean for quite a long time. This is in sapphire blue, which is it's not my favourite of the blues. Aqua blue is my favourite of the Porsche blues, but it's pretty good. So what do you get in the GTS? Well, one thing that I didn't mention was on the wheels, you've got centerlock wheels, which are slightly lighter. I've have them on my RS, and to be honest, they're a bit of a pain. If I could not have them, I would not have them, because changing a wheel, you have to have the big breaker bar. You can't just turn up at any place. So it's a bit more stressful if you need to change a wheel for whatever reason. Standard on the GTS, you get sports exhaust, you get PASM, so Porsche's active suspension management, so you get sort of adaptive suspension. You get sport chrono, so the sort of wart on the dash with a timer and a few sort of functions. You get sport plus mode. I've always thought that was a bit harsh. Like, why do you have to pay to have sport plus, which is the most lenient of traction control and the most sort of reactive of the gearbox settings? I feel like that should be standard on all of the cars. It comes with active engine mounts. I've not driven the sort of before and after on that one, but keeps things a bit more locked down. The GTS is 10 millimeters lower, so they're a bit stiffer. Bit better if you're driving fast, but the ride quality suffers a little bit, which is one of those things that I think a lot of GTS owners probably, I might be wrong, would actually be better off without, because these get used a lot as sort of nice dailies. This car has rear wheel steering. The rear wheels will turn in at low speeds and out at high speeds to sort of add more stability. In the usage of this car, which is a sort of use around town, well, just use a lot, one of the main benefits, or a benefit of rear wheel steering, is extra maneuverability. So you can turn around in a tighter space, and it actually genuinely makes a difference. I've got this pretty sharp corner here, and if I've got a bigger car, it basically can't get around this corner without a multi-point turn. GTS, once you crank on the full lock, gets around a lot easier. As part of the GTS options, you get the blacked out everything, pretty much blacked out and tinted and stuff like that, which I think I'm leaning more into. I used to not like it. I used to kind of want this sort of silver surround, but the more I've had cars that are blacked out a bit, I kind of, looks a bit more aggressive. I can roll with that. I like it. Having clear tints in the back would give a much cleaner look, but it sort of helps a little bit with having luggage in there, but then they're not full tints, so I don't know. Here nor there on the tints. GTSs also have, I can't remember what it's called, the Sport Design kit. They've got a slightly different front bumper and side skirts and stuff. Look a bit more aggressive. That was an option on the Carrera, and they come with Sport Seats Plus, Alcantara everywhere, GT Sports wheel, and my car, I only found out today, had the heated steering wheel because the button is quite hidden. I'll show that when we get in the car. They all come with PTV Plus. You can also order PDCC, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, which is sort of fancy anti-roll bars and stuff to flatten the car off in corners. I quite like a little bit of roll, so this doesn't have it, and I'm totally fine with that. Standard specs out of the factory, 444 brake horsepower, which is actually exactly the same as my GT3 RS, but quite a different driving experience between the two. This has about 90 foot-pounds more torque because it's turbocharged. Gen 2 GTS is a turbocharged, Gen 1 not turbocharged. Actually, Gen 1s are doing quite well in value because of that. For me, I wanted the extra benefit of the upgraded tech. So my car, one of the tech things my car has, here, I don't know if any of you guys, this might be useful. This car gets put on a trickle charger quite a lot, and I, with this one, use that port there with a sort of cigarette lighter socket and then plug it in and then do all the stuff. Interior-wise, we have all the Sport Seats Plus, which are quite good. I would sort of prefer the 18 ways, but these are pretty good, do the job. Benefit of GTS over, I don't know, GT3 or something, you still have the back seats. You've got loads of space there for luggage. You can fold this down as well. One of the benefits of a 911 is you just get all that extra space versus other sports cars. If we get in the car, Porsche's great cup holders. Love that design. Here, this is quite funny. I literally only found this today. There, you can just about see this button. That's where the heated steering wheel button is. I did not know this car had it spec'd, and someone was talking about it on a podcast. Shout out to the Intercooler podcast. Andrew Frankel was talking about it, and I came and checked, and it turns out I have it in my car. The updated nav, Apple CarPlay, works really well. Touchscreen, brilliant. Down here on the center console, here's your button to stiffen up your suspension. Wouldn't do that anywhere apart from on track. Maybe in Europe I'd test it out. Turn traction control off. Lift the wing up on the back. The wing to boot cover. You shouldn't. That should never be pressed on a Carrera ever. Sports exhaust, or valve open on exhaust, or more open. There. Start, stop, turn that one off. Here, this car has a sunroof, which actually is as an option. I wouldn't have previously spec'd it, but I quite enjoy having it. It's just a bit of extra light, a bit of extra nice sound. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really tricky one. The engineer sort of person in me doesn't like the weight up high, but this is, I'm not driving this it's not a race car. So actually it's quite nice, and it is nice popping it open when you're in the countryside for a bit of extra sound. Steering wheel, covered in Alcantara, which I think I would, to be honest, it's nice, but you've got to sort of look after it, and I would probably opt for leather if that was an option for me. The 991.2 has this button, sort of like a push for extra boost. for like, I don't know what it is, 10 seconds or something, and then you can twizzle between your modes. That's quite useful if you want to flick between your modes. And then this car has, which was an option that the reason I got this particular car was it had adaptive cruise control, and that comes down to my usage. But let's fire it up, go for a little drive. Oh, I've just noticed another thing is this has got the Bose sound system. Before having this car, I wasn't sure whether the Bose was, I'm going to say good enough for me, but I love sound systems, and I would always have tried to opt for the Burmester. Just, if someone else has paid for it, definitely I'll try and get it. But this has actually been really good. It required a little bit of tweaking, changed, bass response, various settings and whatnot. I found that in a few cars recently. You have to play with the sound settings a lot. They don't default seem to come in the mode that I think sounds the best. But having tweaked it, it sounds very good. You can crank it loud enough. In my G3 RS, that's one of the problems. You basically can't crank the stereo loud enough if you are listening through your phone or anything like that. But this all works very well. Let's go for a little drive, and I'll talk about why a GTS. Now, why 991.2 GTS? Well, I've always wanted to sort of try out a 911 as a daily. You could say you already have two 911s. Valid point. I didn't really fancy dailying either of them. I wanted something, and this comes down to something I've talked about in the podcast recently. If you've not checked out my podcast, it's called Car Chat. There'll be a link somewhere up there. Most of my driving is around town, which then I use my E208 for, but a PDK car is quite nice for that. And then the rest of it is pretty much munching up and down motorways. And one of the things I really wanted in a car was adaptive cruise control. So you can't get adaptive cruise control in a Porsche and a manual gearbox, which is kind of annoying because you can get it in like Golf Rs and things like that. So it does exist with a manual gearbox. I think, I'm not 100% sure why they haven't done it, haven't developed it, but it's something that I would quite like. Anyway, GTS, I thought I want a 911. I generally probably want a high-spec Carrera. I probably would lean towards a Carrera rather than GTS if all things sort of financial stuff aside, but because I'm just not interested in this sort of sportier suspension setup. But you get more stuff. They hold their residuals better. This car was relatively low mileage. The previous owner had not used it very much, and price-wise, it seemed like a good option, but there weren't very many cars that had adaptive cruise control. For some reason, no one specs it. I don't really understand why, because I think it's brilliant. But if you don't drive on motorways that much and it's not your sort of thing, then fair enough. But those were the two things I was looking for. I wanted a car that someone hadn't driven that much, but didn't seem to be priced in. So this was priced very similarly to a car that had done 12,000 miles, and this had done like 4,000 miles or something like that, which is kind of mental. I've done about 1,500 miles to date. So in terms of value in the range, I thought a GTS might be quite a good way of me trying out a more dailyable 911 and see if I like it, see if it's the sort of thing. I love Porsche. I love 911s. I like driving 911s. I tried the whole Ferrari thing, use it as a daily, not as a daily, but as like use it often, enjoy it, and I didn't like turning up in a Ferrari. Porsche, it doesn't bother me, I quite like that. I think they sort of fly under the radar a bit more, definitely more than a Ferrari. And this one was just reasonably nicely spec'd. That's one thing about GTSs, is they don't miss anything. You're not going to have you can't have a base spec seat because they come with seats that are pretty good. And they just kind of have all the bits and pieces. So PDK, because I'm using it a lot, it will be town, motorways, whatever, mainly because I want adaptive cruise control. GTS, it's got a bit more power, a bit more torque than a Carrera, but that's sort of neither here nor there. Sports exhaust is a nice thing to have. And that's about it, really. Quite simple. I just wanted a 911. The sunroof, I wouldn't have spec'd it, but I quite like it. And I like having it open, not in town, but I do quite like having it open. They're just sort of being outside a little bit without having the full compromise of having a convertible and a bit more noise and all of that sort of stuff. On the motorway, it's a little bit loud. But then all 911s are loud. So that's a compromise of having a 911. But it basically boils down to, I wanted to have a 911 as a daily. I wanted to try it out as a sort of nice car to use a reasonable amount. I've got other cars, so it's not going to get all of the usage, but I thought if I'm doing something it's just me, I want to take this. When baby's big enough, they can go in the back. I've just this is a good time to do this one. Just parked up. This has run on a lot later than I thought. I'm going to visit some friends, so I'm going to go get a bottle of wine. But I'm pulling off the road onto a sort of semi-steep little incline. This car doesn't have a lift, and I don't think a Carrera would have bottomed out, but the GTS did just touch onto a sort of steepish incline. It's plastic on the front, so it's not the end of the world, and these cars are designed to be used, but GTS is that little bit lower, so you do have to be a bit more careful with grinding up. But I'm going to get a bottle of wine. 2 bottles of wine. Back home. And yeah, this is the sort of little stuff that I would do. Generally, we don't use this car for this, but this would probably be more a long motorway drive, hour and a half, somewhere, visit someone, record a podcast, something like that. And then probably chunk of motorway and then a 15, 20 minute bit of road section on the way, and have a bit of fun in the meantime. But yeah, Alcantara steering wheel, nice. Feels good in the hands. You do have to clean them and to keep them sort of in tip top. They get gunged up pretty quickly, but so I would do leather if it was my spec, if I had the choice. But there's lots of nice bits of Alcantara in the interior, so it's nice to have a bit of leather. There we go. There is my new 991.2 GTS. Very much enjoying it so far, and I'll see you in the next video. It'll either be taking this for a spin, getting coffee, who knows, it could be me driving something else, or it will be the new family wagon. It's a little bit more interesting, maybe. I don't know, I thought the last one was quite cool. I'll be interested to know what people think of the next one, but yeah, see you in the next video.